Welcome to Your College Bound Kid,
a podcast for parents, college counselors, students, and anyone who wants a weekly deep dive into the world of college admissions.
My name is Vince, and I've been doing admissions since 1989 and college counseling since 1998 in California.
I'm Lisa, and I'm a clinical psychologist and college counselor. I have a daughter in college, a daughter in high school, and a son in middle school. After 30 years in Chicago, we recently moved to North Carolina.
My name is Mark. I'm a college coach in Atlanta and the parent of two daughters. Karis, a graduate of Davidson College, and she is the founder of the Spanish tutoring company, SpanishHelpToday.com. And Joy is a graduate of the University of Georgia, and she is getting her master's degree at North Carolina State University. Good morning, friends. I am very excited about today's episode for a number of reasons. For one, this is Vince Garcia's first interview flying solo, and trust me, it will not be his last. I'm already reaching out to Vince and saying, Vince, you got a great network. Book those contacts, because he's a natural. And I'll be doing a more in-depth preview of that interview in a second. But a couple other announcements. You know, we haven't talked about this much before, and I'm just going to briefly introduce it here, but it's definitely worthy of a deeper dive, possibly in the news discussion. And that is, COVID has changed things in a way that we haven't really emphasized that much, and that is the expectations on the part of students, the expectations on the part of schools and administrators when it comes to how instruction is going to be transmitted or conveyed. There is now an expectation on the part of students, and I see it with my own daughter in grad school, is that some option of online education will be provided. This dual approach. And, you know, you would think, well, isn't online inferior to in-person? Why would anybody want that? It just turns out that there's times it's just convenient. You're living a long ways away from school and your car broke down. Wow, I really liked it when I was online. I'm sad to say this, but my daughter lived at the beach one semester. She stayed in our timeshare. She was down there and she did her schooling online. I didn't really like that, but I couldn't fault her. That was the only option available at the time, and she handled her business and took her responsibility seriously. But just that flexibility to be able to sometimes not be locally based and still get your instruction. The conveniences that it can open up for you. Maybe you got a parent who's really, really sick and you need to go spend some time with them, but you can still get your school instruction. So there's now this demand that institutions offer that type of flexibility coming from students, and schools are trying to figure that piece out. It's difficult to deliver both very effectively, but colleges also see some potential value that can accrue to them as well. So stay tuned for that. There'll be more on that later. I just wanted to briefly introduce it. If we're going to talk about big factors and forces shaping higher ed, we can't really neglect and ignore that topic. It's pretty significant one. Okay, friends, I want to go back to interviews that we haven't completed yet, but they have committed. And I just want to remind you, please send your questions in. And I'd really love it if you'll do it on Twitter. Just go to YCBK podcast. That's our Twitter, and message me directly. I get like a couple hundred emails a day, and so I can lose stuff in there. But they're like a vault. They stay there in the message section of Twitter, and it's just really easy for me to organize it. And so far, boy, is there ever interest in American University. I'm so glad Andrea Felder's agreed to do that. We've had double-digit questions sent in for American University, 12 last time I checked, from you guys, our listeners. But I'll tell you, a bunch of schools we have not had. In some cases, nobody sent in any questions, or in some cases, we could use more. And if you can get questions to me on any of these schools by October 1st, then we can get them asked directly to our professionals. So Bard, Mercer, Rice University, Pitzer, Chapman, Connecticut College, Trinity College, both of those two in Connecticut, College of the Atlantic, Spelman College, right here in the ATL, Scripps, school that was probably my daughter's second choice after Davidson, St. Louis University. Now that's all about transfer admissions. So you certainly could send a question in on SLU. Daniel could handle that, but really, instead of thinking of this one as SLU, think about if you have any questions at all about transfer admissions, how it works, things you want to know, then send questions my way for that. Colby College, Maine, University of Georgia, the flagship, where my youngest got her undergrad, and then Wash U in St. Louis, super popular powerhouse school. So those are the ones that are committed. Oh, I almost forgot one. Akil Bello committed this week. Test prep expert extraordinaire. He did test prep for 30 years, and he's also been speaking out rather vociferously on the inequities of the test, and he's a big advocate of the test optional and test blind movement. So he just committed 2 days ago to come on the podcast. So interested in any of those topics or those individuals, please just go to @YCBK podcast on Twitter and just use the direct message app. A number of you used that this week, and it was great because I am starting to build up a nice little question set. Just would like to see more for certain schools.
And now this week's interview with a special guest.
So I'm going to do an extensive preview of our guest interview today, and I'm doing it for a couple reasons. For one, it's a shorter interview, so I have a little bit more time. That's one reason. But most importantly, I got to see the real benefit of a college spotlight myself on the recipient side. There's never been a school we've spotlighted that I know less about than Cal Lutheran, California Lutheran University. So I got to experience why you guys like the spotlight so much. I just learned so much about this incredible school. And some of the things that got me excited about it is a lot of times I work with students all around the country and they want to go to California for college. And a lot of times it breaks down over several different things. And in almost every one of these instances, Cal Lutheran could have been a great solution, at least for a family to put on their visit list or research list. One, some students don't want a really big university. And while there are smaller universities in California and colleges, a lot of them are quite large. And then when you get to a lot of the smaller ones, certainly like the Claremont colleges, for example, San Diego, Occidental, to name a few, USF, another one up in San Francisco, and there are others as well. Whittier's one. A lot of them, they break down over cost. They just do. There's a cost issue where if someone's not able to pay full freight or pay, $60K or $55K, just depending on, a lot of things, depending on how they give need or merit based aid away, then it's not really doable. But Cal Lutheran is actually a school that provides that smaller setting. And there's an opportunity for a family to go there, not at that price point. So those things become really, really appealing. Another thing is a lot of the schools, even the bigger schools like the Cal State schools, I've had students who are really interested in going to California, and then they look at those schools and they're not happy with the percentage of students living on campus. They want more of a residential setting. And the nice thing about CLU is more than 50% of students live on campus. So it's more of a residential opportunity. And the Thousand Oaks location, I think, is really appealing to people halfway between LA and Santa Barbara. That's a really attractive location, close to the beach. A lot of people want close to the beach. There's another option there. And then another thing, and this kind of really got me excited. I work with a number of students that are interested in going into sports management. And this is such an incredible opportunity for people interested in sports management because they have a couple professional sports teams that do other practicing right on campus. And those teams open up internship opportunities for students. So it's a great pathway for people that are interested in a career in sports management. So just very, very excited about this interview. It'll be a two-parter with Vince over the next couple weeks. And I'm going to do more of an in-depth preview. So starts out with Matt giving his backstory. By the way, it's Matt Ward. And Matt Ward, his VP of enrollment, he's been there now close to 20 years. He's been there a while. He really knows the school really well. He was there when Vince was working there, so like they're former colleagues together. Matt explains all the roles he has at CLU, and get ready for your head to spin because he wasn't even halfway done. And I was like, how's he doing all these things? It's a very, very long list. He explains CLU's location. He explains the history of CLU. He shares major changes that have occurred in the last 17 years in his tenure there. He talks, and then Vince talks about his own niece's experience. His niece is currently there, and he talks about what her experience has been like as a Cal Lutheran student. Matt explains to us what the most popular majors are at CLU. What are the draws they're really pulling people in from a college major standpoint? Then he explains what Lutheran institutions are known for. Matt explains why housing at CLU is so attractive to so many students. And then Vince shares what it was like for him as a queer person when he was on campus and what his experience was like. Matt explains what Cal Lutheran's price promise is. And for those of you for whom cost is important, I think you're going to love how their scholarships work. And they're actually talking about making them even better. And he'll discuss that as well. And then he talks about how Cal Lutheran's price promise has really improved diversity. And then the last thing in part one is they take a look at the athletic conference that CLU is in and where they compete. So I think you're really going to enjoy this. For me, I absolutely have to visit this place. I'm very excited about it, and I think you will be as well. Listen and enjoy.
Hello, everyone. This is Vince Garcia, and I'm coming to you from California. And today I have the special honor, the first interview I've actually done for this podcast, but also a great friend and former boss. So you always got to start out with great former bosses. Fortunately, I've had 2 of the 5. and we're going to be talking to today Matt Ward, who is the VP of Enrollment and Student Success at Cal Lutheran University, which is an amazing university. My niece Sammy just graduated, and she had a great experience. She might have been the only student from Arkansas. I don't know. I forgot to ask her, but maybe Matt can fill us in there. But given your title, Matt, tell me a little bit about 2 questions. One is what does your day look like? And then secondly, tell us a little bit about your admissions background and how did you start working at CLU?
Sure thing. Thanks, Vince. Great to be with you. Always good to see you and talk to you. So I have always been in higher ed. I went to school in the Mountain West at the University of Wyoming. When I graduated from college, admission just seemed kind of like a cool thing to do. The travel, the working with students. I liked the social interaction. I liked the travel planning and logistics planning. It was after 2 years working for my alma mater that I met someone from the University of Miami in Florida. And that's when I really cut my teeth in the career, in being engaged in admission and then more in financial aid and marketing and getting to know higher ed. I actually had a choice to make after 8 years at Miami of whether I was going to go the faculty route, the academic route. I was thinking about being a professor or sticking with the admission and then enrollment career. I actually quit my job, moved to Mexico City, was doing research for my dissertation in international studies. And I decided that was going to be my route at the time. And it was actually when I was in Mexico City, probably about after 6 months of being there, that I got a call from a search consultant about the job at Cal Lutheran, which happens to be in my hometown. So
Oh, wow.
it was interesting because when I graduated from high school, I said, I'm never coming back to Thousand Oaks. And then sure enough, here I am. And I have 2 kids born in the same hospital as me. So there's a lot of things that are in my personal life that keep me here. And yeah, I've been here for 16 years now. It's hard to believe. And my portfolio, my work portfolio, and the things that I'm responsible has changed over time. Admissions is one component of it, but I also am responsible for financial aid, all of our academic advising programs. We're a Hispanic serving institution, and we have a number of grant programs that report into my area. I also oversee athletics, which has been an interesting enterprise, having not, kind of grown up in the athletics space. and then I also oversee our marketing and communication. So it's a big portfolio, but it's really fun, and it's a great place to work.
That's great. Wow. Wow. Some of that I didn't remember or I didn't know, but it's great that your job continues to evolve. And it must be interesting having daughters live in the same community that you grew up in and see how their experience of it is different than yours.
Yeah, it's very very interesting now because my oldest, if you can believe this, Vince, is going to be starting high school next year. So she's going to be going to the same high school as me. So
Oh, wow.
I don't think there are any old timers that were actually my teachers when I was there, but that is surreal.
Wow.
Because I
Wow.
hadn't stepped foot on that campus for ages.
I can't believe she's starting high school. I remember when she was born.
Yeah, that's right. You were around. That's right.
That's right. All right. So the next question, tell me about CLU's Cal Lutheran's origins. Where is CLU located in Southern California? I think people imagine that we're just one big state with one continuous from LA
One
to
big
San
Los
one
Angeles.
big Los Angeles and San Francisco. But there are some things that I think my experience of Thousand Oaks and where Cal Lutheran is are really unique and special, but I don't think that people know those things. So talk about CLU's origins and location.
Sure thing. It's interesting. I just went to a ceremony the other night for my dad, who was really involved in the parks and recs when I was a kid growing up and getting involved in protecting open space. So while we're proximal to Los Angeles, just a couple miles from the LA County border, we're about halfway between Los Angeles and Santa Barbara, about 10 miles from the ocean as the crow flies, probably depending on how you do travel time, but 20 or 30 minutes from the ocean driving. Um, Cal Lutheran is one of the youngest private institutions in the state of California. We were founded in 1959. There were some Lutheran farmers that owned this land that dedicated that donated it to the church. There's only one other sister institution on the West Coast, Pacific Lutheran University up in Tacoma, Washington. So the origins of this institution come from being kind of a ranching community to through the years, advancing into being a very comprehensive institution. And we've changed a lot, over the last, I would say about 17 years, we've either dedicated or broken ground on a new building every year. Unfortunately, the pandemic impacted one of our biggest investments, and that was a new science and technology building that just opened up in 2020. But it's grown a lot, both in terms of its physical infrastructure, but also kind of its maturity as an organization. You point to the location piece. I started with that a little bit, but our proximity to these communities, and also being in a place that is quite bucolic. We have 25,000 acres of protected open space. It's kind of like as you come over the hill and into out of Calabasas and down into this valley. The air seems to get cleaner. The views are longer. So we really have access to all the things that come with being proximal to entertainment and all the things that LA brings, but also it's a quieter place, and it really is a great place for students that are looking for hiking trails, biking, being close to things that they can do, like recreationally skiing or surfing or whatever. So it's a nice gem in Southern Cal.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think for my niece who she started to visit us, Greg and me, her freshman year. And so every summer she would the week would turn into 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And so when we were looking at schools, the first place she looked was Cal Lutheran. And I think she felt really safe there. She felt really safe and well cared for. And she had a great experience there. So when I worked there, one of the things that you were charged with was increasing, obviously, access and diversifying the campus and making sure that they had more applicants, and the quality of the applicants and students attending CLU has changed in 20 years, like few other places, maybe like Northeastern and USC. Talk a little bit about where CLU was when you started and what it looks like today.
Yeah, great question. Some of it relates to what I was talking about in terms of some of the growth, organically, making the right kinds of investments in the institution that's going to be attractive to students. And I would say location matters a lot. I think that's been a part of our growth in making the investment into marketing and building an application pool is something that has been an important part of my work. But I would say the hiring practices, the kinds of programs that we've added, the emphasis that we have on athletics and attracting students that are interested in kind of the balance between doing things in the classroom and really a robust extracurricular and co-curricular kind of experience have been important. So there's tactical stuff that we do in admission, and I'm very fortunate to have learned under some of the kind of icons in enrollment management and admission, and it was funny. I think I may have said this to you before, but like going from Miami, where their growth trajectory and the kinds of things that were happening there and the fast-paced environment, and coming here, at first I felt like, I don't know if this is too old of a reference, but like the movie The Matrix, like when like bullets are coming at him and you can kind of like move out of the way. I felt like I could see a lot of things that could be put into place strategically here that were just low-hanging fruit in terms of the way we reach out to students, building a college counseling kind of outreach program, really honing in on the visit experience. Students are 5 times more likely to enroll at Cal Lutheran if they visit campus, if they've applied. So really trying to invest in a lot of those things. I can go on a number of things, but I think it's the combination of kind of those long-term factors, kind of the product and how we've evolved and created programs that are attractive to students. And then also there are things that we do in admission and marketing and building a pool and delivering classes. We've grown since I've been here on the undergrad side, since we're focused on undergrad, from about 1,600, a little over 1,600 students to a high water mark of a little over 2,800. Dipped down a little bit during the COVID and have been bouncing back in this last year.
That's great. And when students are thinking about CLU, what are sort of the academic and extracurricular highlights, and what does housing look like for students who come?
Yeah, so academic and curricular programs, we have some of the most popular majors here are very popular at lots of places, and we kind of follow those trends and try to build around them. So biology, psychology is a very strong program here. Our exercise science program, a lot in the communications and kind of digital space, whether it be kind of multimedia or digital design. We added a film and cinematic studies program, music production, and some of the business involved in kind of the entertainment industry is something that we've focused in. Very much a relevant kind of program for the region. Our business administration major is also one of our most popular majors. And one of the things that we're very focused on are internships and kind of the experiences students can have outside the classroom to not only work on their career, but being a Lutheran institution, one of the things that Lutherans are kind of known for is this idea of discovering your purpose and who you are professionally, like what the gifts and the talents that you have, like how to serve your neighbor, how to be socially justice minded kind of in the work that you do. So that plays out in the curriculum. It plays out kind of in the work experiences that students have. I mentioned athletics before, but we have 22 athletic teams. Nearly a quarter of our students participate in Division III athletics. We're part of the Southern California Intercollegiate Athletic Conference. It's not like crazy Division One, they own you kind of life, but you get to compete at a really high level. We've had national champions recently in baseball and volleyball. We had a national champion swimmer this last year. So pretty good balance of programs that have been helpful in our enrollment growth.
That's great. And talk a little bit about housing.
Oh, sorry, housing. Yeah, I mean that's a huge part of our attractiveness. From the get go, it's suite style housing. So there's no dormitory kind of corridor style shared bathroom housing. Every single housing unit is kind of apartment style or suites where two rooms share a common living room and then a restroom. We have some, I've been here a while, relatively new apartment style residences that have been in place for a few years that offer really large kind of apartments with good views of the mountains that take advantage of where we are, and housing is guaranteed. I see that's something that I know is so important to students these days, and particularly with the housing market and finding the inexpensive housing close to where you go to school. Here, that's not a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that segues into a good avenue to ask a little bit about the Lutheran part of Cal Lutheran, and you're familiar with in higher education, there's a range of religious schools that have traditions tied back to faith perspectives. My experience of Cal Lutheran, that was very open and affirming. Being a queer person and working there and feeling very supported, and students were free to be who they wanted to be. I thought it was a terrific place in that spectrum. But talk a little bit about what you initially thought the Lutheran part meant, and how did it evolve, and how has it evolved over the time that you've been there?
Yeah, I'll start with my personal experience, as you mentioned yours. Like I was very skeptical about taking a job at Cal Lutheran because I'm not a practicing Christian. I'm actually more Eastern oriented and Buddhist in my belief system, and I actually became more spiritual in my Eastern oriented belief system being here, based on the kinds of support that I had here. Lutherans are very paradoxical, and like our lead in campus ministry would say the way that we be Lutheran is having more non-Lutherans on our campus.
That's great.
So it's about living into the world, and it's important for people to understand there. Lutheran's not monolithic. There are different branches. Yes. And I would just say, from a kind of an openness perspective, this is a very open and kind of forward thinking faith group.
Yes.
And in terms of the student population, it's not a huge part of our student population. We have lots of spiritual activities for that are interfaith, that are for non-believers, and then of course chapel and things that students are welcome to attend. But I think it's interesting because it's in our name, so students who are more secular or not Christian, I think get nervous. Where we have the biggest challenge, I think, are students that expect us to be a Bible college, and we're nothing like that. I mean, we do have a religion requirement, but it's the academic study of religion and not the introduction to Christianity. It's about studying a spectrum of religions and faith traditions. So, I encourage, and the fact that people are open to talk about their spirituality, I think, is actually a healthy thing. And it's been for me to kind of return to the personal piece.
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate that perspective. Talk about CLU's public price promise.
It's funny. I was just talking to our dean of admission today about this. He's relatively new to Cal Lutheran, and he's like, "We have to push this more and get it into the college counseling community more in particular." But it's something that we created were you working here when we launched this, Vince?
Yes. The first year.
And because around the Great Recession, to kind of date ourselves, right? There was lots of conversations about the increasing cost of education, particularly in the public sector, and we're looking at the data and saying, like, our students who are getting into UC are getting merit scholarships from Cal Lutheran that effectively match the cost of going to these schools. So we put our money where our mouth is, and basically this program will guarantee that you receive a scholarship that will make Cal Lutheran the same cost as UC, no matter which UC campus you get into. So we're actually thinking about ways of making it even easier for students to access this scholarship without even showing. The way it works right now is students show us that they've been admitted to these institutions, they get a scholarship. But we also know with certain populations of high achieving students, like, let's just get this scholarship to them right away and quickly, because we know that when students get this kind of information, and when families and parents and
yes,
members get this information too, it does encourage the visit and the relationship with the school, and that's going to be helpful to us and to the students that might be interested in us.
And what kind of impact did that program, bringing the program to campus, have on the quality and the way that faculty were interacting? I'm sure with students, the quality of students probably was stronger, but talk about its impact.
Yeah, there's a few different things. One thing that, and I know we'll get into this conversation about the diversity of our college campus. I wasn't sure, like, demographically and from a socioeconomic perspective, like, how this would impact numbers, but we found that there's a lot of students in our backyard, particularly first generation and traditionally underrepresented students or underserved students, that were very attracted to this program. I think because it's so simple, and the parents, you can go to a private school close to home with this kind of opportunity. So it engendered a nice marketing boost for us, for a population of students that we've really done a great job in enrolling. Students who are the first in their family to go to college. Certainly the academic quality, to get a high achieving, diverse class. I mean, these are like an enrollment manager's and admission person's dream, right? Yes. So, but it also, like, UCLA, UC San Diego, UC Santa Barbara. I mean, these are brand names. These are among the most reputable institutions in the world. So we're in the same breath with those schools as well, right? So from an academic quality and kind of the juxtaposition of Cal Lutheran with these institutions, I think that has been good too, to get into conversation with college counselors. So it's a nice, quick way of saying, you can have a private education for a public price.
That's great. Talk a little bit about SCIAC, because some of our listeners may not be familiar with who are you competing against athletically.
Yeah, an intercollegiate. It's a very interesting conference because it's such a mix of schools with different kinds of missions and demographics and academic profiles. But the SCIAC conference, I should know this off the top of my head, but you have the combo schools like Pomona, Pittsburgh competes together. But we have in our conference Occidental College, Caltech, Redlands, Chapman, Laverne, Whittier, and then all the Claremont colleges. So one of the things from an enrollment strategy that we've really tried to hone in on is by investing in athletics and particularly the facilities, because those can be that can be a very attractive attribute in our coaches and their coaching philosophy and their ability to win. If we have winning programs and a student is looking at us versus maybe a school that has a little bit more of an upstream reputation, that if we have a winning program and if students feel like they're going to have a great experience athletically in that kind of experience, we can pluck students away from an institution that might be a little bit more selective than us. And that has been a strategy that's worked pretty well for us.
Great.
Friends, this completes the first half. We hope you'll join us next week for the final part. Friends, on Thursday's episode, Julia is back, and we'll be talking about Becoming a Data Scientist. It's the final part of a 3-part series that Brennan Barnard did. We were going to do all 3, but we decided to do the last 2. So we have a great back and forth conversation about you need to become a college admissions data scientist, an article that appeared in Forbes on June 9th, 2022. And for our question from Melissa, there's still bonus content time for Lisa. And it's our second part examining what parents can do to help their child feel less pressure to go to an elite college. What are there things parents can do to shield that if your child is experiencing that? And we'll be discussing that. And then our final part with Heath Einstein, Dean of Admission at TCU, better known as Texas Christian University. And our topic will be Understanding TCU, Part 3 of 3. And friends, I close you out with something. If you've not a first-time listener, you've heard this from me before, and I'm going to say it again because I want to just etch it in your mind that college is not a prize to be won. It is a match to be made. See you on Thursday. And that's our show. A big thank you to you, our listeners, for tuning in this week. If you find this podcast helpful, please follow us and you'll get every single episode as soon as it is released. If you're interested, there are a few ways you can really support our podcast. You can click the share button and send it to your friends and acquaintances. You can help us pay our staff and our expenses by donating on our website. You can write a review for us on Apple or Spotify. I'm the producer of the podcast, but we have a fantastic team of 14. Shout out to our co-host, Dr. Lisa Ruff, Dr. David Williams, Susan Tree, Vince Garcia, and Julia Esquivel. And to our substitute co-host, Sylvia Borgo. Our sensational sound engineer is Nemanja Motvich. Our amazing music is from Victor Allen Weeks. Marketing designs are from Kimberly Blacks. Lily Parikh manages our Instagram. Our image editor is Talha Khan. Joyce Ducker does our website episode updates. And our webmaster is Stelianos Dimitriou. If you want to have a coaching session with Lisa or me, just text me at 404-664-4340. If you have a question you want us to answer, or if you have a recommended resource or article you think we should discuss, just send it to questions@yourcollegeboundkid.com. By the way, check out our website, where you'll find lots of content that is not on any podcast app. Our website is yourcollegeboundkid.com. If you want to learn about other hot admissions topics, follow us on Twitter at YCBK Podcast. We think of you as our listening family, and we look forward to meeting again with you every single Thursday.